The shrill, grating chirp of cicadas drifted through the window, seeping into the classroom during the last evening self-study session of Senior 3, weighing heavy suffocation on every heart. I jolted awake, my fingertips brushing the rough wood grain of the desk edge. While the familiar tang of old textbooks mixed with chalk dust lingered in my nostrils, my gaze swept across the desktop. Emblazoned clearly in the upper right corner of the spread-out college entrance examination final prediction paper was the date June 6th. The day before the Gaokao. My heart constricted sharply, a bone-chilling cold, pent up for an entire decade, shot straight up my spine to the crown of my head. I was back. No more damp rental rooms. No more round-the-clock assembly line workshops that flipped day and night. No more the muddy, lowly gutter where I'd scraped by in humiliation for half my life. I was 18 again, returned to the turning point that had warped my entire fate. To the very start of the nightmare that had incinerated all my prospects. Back then, I'd been seen by everyone as a docile, obedient straight-A student, soft-tempered, unable to say no. I'd made a habit of yielding to everyone around me. I'd foolishly believed sincerity begets sincerity. That 3 years of shared classes was precious fate, yet all I'd gotten in return was the cruelest, most malicious betrayal imaginable. Yu Nianxi, the class beauty unanimously acknowledged by everyone, possessed a pure, gentle face and courteous manners. She was the teacher's pet and the center of the whole class's adoration. No one knew that beneath her mild facade lay crippling jealousy and inferiority. My grades had consistently outshone hers. The sole flaw marring her perfect public persona, that tiny, insignificant gap had festered hatred in her heart for a full year. On the eve of the Gaokao, she put on an act of anxious breakdown, dragged my desk mate Ji Xinghe along, and rallied most of the class to shun me as a group. They secretly stole the error notebook and core exam keynotes I'd compiled over 3 grueling years, spreading rumors around the classroom that I was mentally warped, envious of my classmates, and prone to self-harm under academic pressure. Gossip and slander flooded every corner of the room, and the entire class took that baseless accusation as fact. Luo Jingfan, the Cultural and Sports Committee member, led the cold shoulder treatment. Anyone who dared exchange a word with me would be mocked for taking my side and labeled an outcast. Fang Yuan and his group of underachievers piled on with jeers and taunts, treating my distress as entertainment to ease their own stress. Shunned, misunderstood, targeted by the whole class. My mental state completely crumbled. 12 years of relentless study. Countless sleepless nights burning midnight oil, all of it went up in smoke amid their scheming and ostracism. On exam day, my mind swam in a haze. I performed catastrophically and failed to secure admission to any university at all. Meanwhile, every single person who'd ruined me, every classmate who'd bullied me without remorse, marched confidently into the exam halls, scored normally, and set off toward bright futures of their own. Yu Nianxi got into a top-tier key university as she'd wished, sailing smoothly through life on her persona of kindness and gentleness. Luo Jingfan, Ji Xinghe and the rest each embarked on brand new lives of promise. Only I remained trapped in the abyss, condemned to walk through life with my head hung low. 10 years of unrelenting hardship followed. I worked assembly line shifts, handed out flyers, waited tables, worn down and unrecognizable by life's grind, weeping with regret through countless lonely nights. I could never wrap my head around it. I'd never hurt a soul, never wronged anyone. So why must I bear the brunt of everyone's malice? Why should I pay the price for other people's selfishness, now that I'd been given a second chance? Every last shred of tenderness and kindness in my heart had long been eroded away by a decade of suffering. I stared at the noisy classroom before me, at those young, fresh faces masking hypocrisy and innocence, my eyes cold and impassive. In my past life, you shattered my prospects and severed my path through life. In this life, I will not strike first, yet I will never let any of you get away unscathed. The bright futures and smooth lives you seized by treading on my agony shall all be returned to me tenfold. No one here is innocent. Every last one of you deserves what's coming. Qing Yuan, what are you daydreaming about? School's almost over, wanna head back to the dorm together. A soft, milky voice chimed beside my ear, laced with perfectly calibrated gentle concern. I didn't even need to lift my head to know it was Yunyanshi. I slowly raised my eyes to meet hers. Fluorescent light spilled over her fair face, soft eyes curving into a faint smile. Yet exhaustion and panic flickered uncontrollably beneath them. It was the look unique to the day before the Gaokao, the product of crushing pressure from her dysfunctional family. I knew her all too well. To outsiders, Yunyanshi was poised, outstanding, warm and generous, an impeccable perfect girl. But only I knew every ounce of that perfection was forced upon her. Her mother Jiang Perong was overbearing beyond measure, imposing brutal standards on her from childhood, refusing to tolerate a single misstep, refusing to let her slip from the spotlight of public admiration. As the Gaokao drew near, Jiang Perong hounded her nearly every day with verbal degradation, warning her that one poor performance would render years of hard work meaningless, turning her into a laughingstock for everyone. Mounting pressure had pushed Yunyanshi to the brink of collapse long ago. Outwardly composed, inwardly she lived in constant terror, petrified of the exam, of failure, of losing her perfect mask and being left with nothing at all. In my previous life, foolishly, I'd pitied her, comforted her, stayed up late chatting with her, poured my heart out to soothe her only for her to drive the fatal knife straight into my back. How laughable it all was. Pulling my thoughts back, I smothered all icy edge from my gaze, slipping on a plain, mild expression. My tone soft and identical to the docile girl I'd once been. I was just worn out and zoned out for a second. It's nothing. Ji Xinghe leaned over, slinging an arm over Yunyanshi's shoulder, scratching irritably at the exam papers spread on her desk. I'm dead tired. The Gaokao's tomorrow, and my mind's gone completely blank. The more I review, the more panicked I get. I'm honestly about to break. Same here. A classmate beside us cut in at once, thick with anxiety. My parents were going on last night about how I have to get into an undergraduate college. Otherwise these 3 years were a waste. I'm so stressed I can't sleep. Aren't we all? Murmurs of complaint rippled across the classroom. In the final stretch of Senior 3, high-pressure exam preparation wrapped its claws around every student. No one was truly calm. While everyone buried their heads in revision on the surface, nearly all drowned in internal turmoil and anxiety behind closed doors. Countless of them secretly wishing they could avoid this life-defining exam entirely. This was the opening I'd been waiting for. Every heart frayed. Every soul living in fear. A selfish urge to escape lingered deep within each of them. Yunyanshi frowned faintly, her fingers picking unconsciously at her pen, panic impossible to hide in her eyes. Her voice was quiet, edged with barely perceptible quivering. I'm so scared too. Mom told me yesterday that if I don't get into a key university, I'll have to repeat the whole year. No going out to play. Locked away studying every single day for the next 12 months. Silence crashed over the room the second the words left her mouth. Everyone knew how harsh Jiang Perong was, and instantly grasped that Yunyanshi's pressure far surpassed their own. Luo Jingfan set down his pen, gaze fixed on Yunyanshi with his usual biased softness. Don't overthink it. Your grades are always rock solid. You'll be fine. Don't pile this stress on yourself. Ji Xinghe chimed in quickly in agreement. Right. Nyanshi. You nail every mock exam. You're definitely gonna do great. Don't spiral over nothing. They're empty. Hollow words of comfort did nothing to calm her. Yunyanshi's cheeks stayed pale, terror still swirling unmasked in her eyes. I watched the scene quietly, my mind crystal clear. Those platitudes could never soothe her deep-rooted dread. What she feared wasn't the exam itself, it was the blame that would follow defeat. The collapse of her flawless image. The endless disappointment of her family. And I held exactly the words to melt away her fear. Then give her a fatal push. I shifted slightly closer to Yunyanshi, softening my voice further with empathetic warmth. No trace of calculated scheming in my tone. I truly understand how you feel. The more expectations others heap on you, the more terrified you are of letting them down. As the deadline looms closer, you spiral, convinced you've left gaps in your revision. Hollow and adrift inside, Yunyanshi's head shot up to look at me, a flicker of shared understanding igniting in her eyes, as if someone had finally seen through her torment. Exactly. That's exactly how it feels. She nodded hard. Voice thick with suppressed grievance. Everyone assumes I've got it locked down. That I'll ace the test for sure, but only I know how unsteady I am. I'm terrified I'll slip up somehow. No one's ever 100% certain of success. I said evenly, speaking slowly. Every word striking straight at her psyche. The higher the bar others set for you, the less room you have for error. And the heavier the pressure grows. Sometimes it's not that we haven't worked hard enough. It's the weight of everyone's expectations choking the breath out of us. Those words struck a raw, tender chord deep inside Yunyanshi. Her eyes glistened faintly red. The tension coiled inside her all day, unraveling in an instant. Weariness heavy in her voice. I'm so exhausted. Qing Yuan. Sometimes I just want to stop everything. I don't want to take the exam. Or keep up this perfect version of myself everyone's come to expect. The time had come. A faint glint of cold flashed across my eyes. Gone in a heartbeat. My face still soft with shared sympathy. My tone light as an offhand musing. Sometimes escaping just once isn't such a terrible thing. No one has to force themselves to keep charging forward nonstop. Yunyanshi froze. Clearly stunned I'd say something like that. The surrounding classmates turned their heads to stare. Confusion etched across their faces. To everyone, I was the most disciplined student. The one who valued the Gaokao above all else. Buried in study day in and day out. Never uttering a single word of surrender. Escape. How would we even do that? Fong Yuan pulled a long, miserable face. The exam's tomorrow. Admission tickets have already been handed out. There's no running away. And our parents will rip into us if we flop. That was the key. The admission ticket was the chain binding every single one of them. I remained unrushed. Still speaking gently. As if chatting casually. The admission ticket is just a pass to enter the exam hall. Nothing more than a chain binding us. If you didn't have that ticket, you wouldn't need to sit the exam at all. No pressure to face. No fear of bad grades. No fear of disappointing anyone, just a simple, unburdened break. Silence blanketed the classroom the second I finished speaking. No one argued back. I'd voiced the secret. Unspoken thought lurking in every single heart. After a short pause, Ji Xinghe muttered quietly, "That's true. But without the ticket you just miss the exam entirely. It's a life-changing event, who dare risk that? It's just a passing thought," I concluded flatly, falling silent. Ending the conversation at just the right moment. Too much talk would ruin everything. I didn't need to convince them all in one go. I only needed to plant a tiny seed of longing to escape in their minds. Once that seed took root, tonight's anxiety, insomnia and endless overthinking would water it until it sprouted. Yunyanshi's expression wavered visibly. She stared down at the brand new admission ticket on her desk, fingers trembling faintly, inner conflict and temptation swirling thick in her eyes. I drank in every shift of her expression, my mind unshakably clear. Step 1 was complete. Night fell deeper, and the bell rang sharply to mark the end of evening self-study. Students scrambled to gather their textbooks, chattering noisily as they packed up to head back to the dormitories. Still rambling about their exam anxiety, I tidied my desk unhurriedly, calm and composed, a stark contrast to the rest of the class's frantic unrest. Yunyanshi finished packing her school bag but didn't leave right away. Instead, she hesitated, stepping over to my side and lowering her voice. "Qing Yuan, can I stay with you a little longer tonight? I can't fall asleep." My heart's racing nonstop. I lifted my gaze to meet hers, nodding openly, my tone still soft. "Of course. No rush to leave. I'll sit with you for a while." She let out a quiet breath of relief, dependence shining in her eyes. Watching her place such blind trust in me stirred no emotion in my chest, only icy mockery. In my past life, you played the gentle confidant to unravel my mental stability. In this life, I'll play the empathetic friend to destroy yours. Fair is fair. One by one. The other students filed out until only Yunyanshi and I remained in the empty classroom. The spacious room fell unnervingly quiet. Night breeze drifted through the window, stirring the curtains, yet unable to dispel the thick tension hanging in the air. Yunyanshi stared at the admission ticket on the desk corner, silent for a long stretch before speaking softly. Tentative and testing. Qing Yuan. What you said earlier, was it true? Without the admission ticket, we really don't have to take the exam. I looked up, eyes clear and tone utterly sincere. Not a single crack in my act. It's the absolute truth. Exam hall regulations are extremely strict. Without an admission ticket, identity verification is impossible. You can't enter the hall. So naturally you don't take the test. But Yunyanshi bit her lip, conflicted. That means skipping the exam entirely. A whole year's hard work down the drain. My mom will lose her mind. I watched her tangled hesitation, speaking slowly and guiding her gently. Every word aligned perfectly with her fragile mindset. No trace of forceful brainwashing. You'd only be giving up this year's exam, not your whole life. You're in such a fragile state right now. Forcing yourself to sit the test will almost certainly lead to terrible results. You'll be crushed by failure, and then face relentless blame from your family on top of it all. Why drag yourself through a disastrous exam with a broken mindset when you can pause and catch your breath? I paused, lowering my voice to lay out the tempting escape route she craved most. It's just 1 year of repeating school at worst. Far better than draining every ounce of energy only to suffer a crushing defeat and be written off by everyone. Isn't it? That single sentence shattered the last wall of her psychological defenses. What terrified her most was never repeating a grade. It was the humiliation of failure. The collapse of her perfect persona. Her mother's endless criticism and degradation. If she chose to walk away of her own accord, to take a voluntary break, then her failure wouldn't count as failure at all. She'd still be the outstanding student who'd only paused momentarily. No jarring contrast to endure. No blame to bear. It was the selfish, cowardly escape she'd always yearned for. Yunyanshi's expression shifted completely, inner struggle fading away, replaced by intense temptation and longing, her breath quickening faintly. Is it really that simple? She murmured to herself. I nodded lightly, tone resolute. It's far more dignified to step away gracefully than to stumble out defeated. Besides, you're not the only one drowning under the pressure. Half the class is barely holding on. If we all hit pause together, skip the exam side by side, no one can laugh at anyone. We'll all be in the same boat. I emphasized the words all together deliberately. Escaping alone meant cowardice and shame. Escaping as a group meant relief, shared understanding. It was humanity's weakest flaw. Yunyanshi's eyes lit up instantly, as if she'd grasped a lifeline, her taut shoulders slumping fully in release. You're right. Everyone's worn thin. I'm not the only one, she whispered, half convincing herself, half locking her resolve into place. If none of us have to take the exam, I won't be scared anymore. And Mom can't force me to push through. I watched her talk herself into it, saying nothing more. I'd said enough. Everything was perfectly set in motion. Tonight's groundwork was complete, the seed planted firmly. Tomorrow it would bloom, out of her line of sight. My fingertips brushed the counterfeit admission ticket tucked in my pocket, one I'd secretly printed at an off-campus print shop at dusk. Identical to the official Gaokao ticket in paper texture, layout, font spacing and photo placement, indistinguishable to the naked eye. The only difference, this fake held no official filing record, no anti-counterfeit chip, and would fail all machine verification at exam halls. A complete forgery, tailor-made just for her. I lowered my eyes to hide all cold, calculating scheming. My voice soft as ever. It's getting very late. Let's head back to the dorm to rest. Don't overthink things. We'll cross tomorrow's bridge when we get there. Yunyanshi nodded vigorously, all anxiety melting away, replaced by quiet hope and calm. She looked at me with unwavering trust. Qing Yuan, I'm so lucky to have you. I'm glad you're here with me on this last day. I curled my lips into a faint, empty smile, offering no reply. Stay with you. Of course I will. I'll watch with my own eyes as every last one of you stumbles straight into the trap I've laid, ruining your Gaokao with your own hands, throwing your bright futures away yourselves. Every ounce of despair and regret I endured in my past life, I'll make every single one of you live through it this time. 10 years of frozen hardship could never extinguish my burning resentment. A lifetime's worth of hatred will finally be settled. Ed, today, no one will ever steal the bright future that belongs to me again. I slept fitfully through the night. When I opened my eyes, the sound of students washing up echoed nonstop down the dormitory corridor. Today was June 7th. The day of the gay-acade date that would seal the fates of millions. The phone beside my pillow lit up. The time frozen clearly at 5:40 in the morning. Yu Nianxi, in the bunk next to mine, had long been awake yet hadn't gotten up. She curled up under the covers with her back to me, her shoulders rigid with tension. I watched her silhouette silently, my heart utterly devoid of feeling. The seed I'd planted the night before had been watered by a full night of anxious tossing and turning, now firmly rooted and sprouting inside her mind. She'd found no peace, no calm. Instead, she'd cycled through endless overthinking and self-delusion, scrambling to dig up every excuse to run away. This was exactly the outcome I'd wanted. On this day 10 years prior, I'd dragged myself out of bed early, forcing my broken, bullied mind to hold steady as I gritted my teeth and packed stationery. Flipping through my notes over and over, I'd told myself repeatedly to block out their malice, that I had to ace the exam and escape this tiny town. But they'd still refused to let me be. Ji Xinghe had deliberately knocked over my water cup at dawn, soaking all my answer sheets. Luo Jingfan had led the boys in jeering outside the dorm, sneering that my shattered mental state guaranteed failure. Yu Nianxi had pretended to help me dry my papers, only to sneakily slip away the annotated slips I'd tucked under my pillow, throwing my entire exam day rhythm off balance. With petty, underhanded, untraceable cruelty, they'd chipped away the last shred of my confidence bit by bit. This life, I would never let anyone manipulate me again. I sat up unhurriedly and folded my quilt, every movement steady and composed, not a flicker of pre-exam panic on my face. From the waterproof innermost pocket of my school bag, I pulled out my genuine Gaokao admission ticket. I double-checked the edges, official embossed stamp, an anti-counterfeit barcode. And once I confirmed it was intact, I stowed it back carefully. My documents would always be safe, never compromised. Qing Yuan. Yu Nianxi's hoarse, parched voice came from behind me, thick with exhaustion from a sleepless night and barely concealed wavering resolve. I turned to face her, my expression as gentle as always. What's wrong? Didn't you sleep well? Yu Nianxi slowly twisted around. Her eyes were bloodshot, her face frighteningly pale, and she clutched the quilt hem tight in both hands as if clinging to a lifeline. I didn't sleep a wink all night, she whispered, barely holding back a breakdown. Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was my mom's disappointed face and visions of me bombing the exam. I really can't take it anymore. She looked up at me, her gaze desperate and reliant. What you said yesterday, it's true, right? Without an admission ticket, I don't have to take the exam this year. It's true, I replied flatly, every word factual, no lie woven in. Exam hall rules are non-negotiable. No ticket, no entry. A missed exam only registers an empty score for this session. It does not disqualify you from repeating Senior 3 next year. I deliberately avoided mentioning how shameful skipping the exam alone would be, only laying out the safest, most reasonable escape route for her. Yu Nianxi's breath eased noticeably, most of the terror draining from her eyes, replaced by an uncanny sense of relief. Thank goodness, she murmured softly. I just don't have to face it right now. I truly can't bear the weight of everyone's expectations. Watching her numb herself into complacency, I guided her forward in a soft voice, my words warm on the surface yet piercing to the core. This is just a temporary break, not surrender. You've always had solid foundational knowledge. You're just overwhelmed by pressure right now. Forcing yourself into the exam hall when you're unraveled would be a genuine waste of your hard work. It's far better to reset your mindset and try again next year. These words gave her full justification to escape without guilt. What she feared, at most, was never failing the test itself, but the self-loathing and blame that would follow defeat. I'd reframed her cowardly flight as irrational, Sensible choice. But it'll look bizarre if I'm the only one doing this. Yoon Yanxi frowned. Falling back into conflict. Everyone in class is pushing themselves to sit for the exam. If I'm the only one who backs out, what will they think of me? My mom will lose her mind when she finds out. There it was. Her greatest worry had never been skipping the exam, it was the cost of escaping alone. To run away by yourself was weakness. To escape as a group was liberation. This was humanity's most unvarnished flaw. And the core of my plan. I moved to sit on the edge of her bunk, my tone sincere and empathetic. Perfectly playing the role of a caring best friend. You heard everyone last night, half the class is crumbling under the strain. Ji Xinghe lives in fear of her parents scolding her for falling short of an undergraduate score. Fang Yuan has always hated studying. Even Luo Jingfan kept saying his mind's falling apart. You're not the only one suffering. Everyone's just too ashamed to admit it out loud. A flicker of hope crossed Yoon Yanxi's face. But they're all getting ready to take the exam anyway. That's only because no one's dared to take the lead. I said mildly. Everyone's white-knuckling through it. Following the crowd. Putting on a calm front even when they're breaking inside. If you step forward to talk to them. I'm sure plenty of people crave a pause, they just don't have the courage to say so. I never told her to harm anyone. I only told her she could save everyone. I wrapped her selfish urge to flee in the guise of kindness. A leader freeing the whole class from unbearable stress. It was the excuse that fit her self-image perfectly. The one that would quiet all her inner guilt. Yoon Yanxi froze, obvious temptation flashing across her features. Her cheeks flushing with a mix of longing and vanity. She thrived on being the center of attention. The person everyone relied on. Cast as the gentle, kind-hearted leader. If she wasn't chickening out alone, but leading the whole class out of their agony, she wouldn't look disgraceful at all. She seemed thoughtful, compassionate, someone who understood their pain. Do you really think people will agree? Her breathing quickened. Absolutely. I nodded firmly. You're the most well-liked person in class, and everyone trusts you. Explain the pros and cons gently. Tell them they don't have to endure the anxiety, that they can hit pause for a year. No one will turn down that reprieve. I delivered the final nudge, sealing her resolve entirely. Rather than marching into the exam hall against our will, walking home with terrible grades and facing scoldings, wouldn't it be better for all of us to step back and reset? You'd be helping everyone out of their misery. Every last trace of mental burden melted away after that sentence. No more hesitation lingered in her eyes, replaced by steely determination and even a flicker of mission-driven fervor. You're right. She nodded hard. I'm not running away. I just hate watching all of us suffer like this. This year's unrelenting pressure has been agonizing beyond words. I lowered my gaze to hide the icy contempt in my eyes. What a beautiful act of self-righteous pity. In our past life, you'd fed off the crowd's adoration to rally them and hurt me. In this life, you'd again exploit their herd mentality to single-handedly ruin every single one of their futures. The exact same selfishness. The exact same hypocrisy. I'll go speak to the class right away. Yoon Yanxi scrambled upright. The dejection and anxiety from earlier completely wiped from her face, replaced by a faint buzz of excitement at the prospect of taking charge. I'll lay everything out clearly. Leave it to everyone's free will. Anyone who wants to set aside this pressure with me can skip the exam together. I replied softly. Go speak to them soon. While everyone's mental state is at its most fragile before the test, I took no part in inciting them. Never urged anyone to abandon the exam. I'd only soothed her anxiety, sorted out her reasoning for her, and let her volunteer to take charge of her own free will. All blame would rest solely on her selfishness and cowardice, not me. Yoon Yanxi rushed through washing and dressing, fixing her appearance in the mirror. Her earlier unraveled state vanished without a trace, replaced by barely suppressed excitement at being in control. I rose at a leisurely pace, pulling the high-fidelity counterfeit admission ticket I'd prepared in advance from my bag's inner pocket, and held it out to her gently. Its paper texture, color sheen, layout, font, and photo clarity matched the official ticket perfectly, impossible to distinguish with the naked eye. Just in case you have second thoughts later, or fear your family will press you for yours. Take this, I said casually, as if thoughtfully providing her a safety net. I asked an acquaintance at the off-campus print shop to make a spare copy. It looks identical, more than enough for emergencies. I deliberately omitted the critical detail. It would fail all machine identity verification at exam entrances. I did not lie. I simply withheld the full truth. Holding back key facts while speaking partial truths was the perfect scheme. Leaving no trace that could be pinned on me, Yunyanxi's fingers trembled as she gripped the fake ticket, her eyes brimming with gratitude and unwavering trust. Qing Yuan, you're truly amazing. At a time like this, you're the only one who genuinely cares about me. She clutched the forgery tight as if it were her salvation. I offered a faint, empty smile and said nothing. Amazing. Soon enough, she would learn just how deadly my kindness truly was. We walked together toward the teaching building. The classroom buzzed with morning chaos. Every student hunched over textbooks and error notebooks, muttering key exam points under their breath, their faces taut, anxious, unable to sit still. The moment Ji Xinghe spotted Yunyanxi, she hurried over, scraping irritably at her books. Nianxi, I'm losing my mind. The more I memorize, the more jumbled everything gets. I just know I'll flop today. My parents already said if I don't hit an undergraduate score, I'm not welcome back home. Fong Yuan slouched over his desk, utterly defeated. Might as well sit for it. Scrape 300 or 400 points. And get chewed out when I get home. These 3 years will have been a total waste. I don't have the slightest desire to step foot in that exam hall. It's suffocating. Luo Jingfan massaged his temples with a furrowed brow, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Same here. I tossed and turned all night. My mind's completely blank. Nowhere near ready. The entire class teetered on the edge of collapse. This was the flawless window I'd waited for. Yunyanxi drew a deep breath and stepped to the center of the classroom. She looked out over the restless crowd, her voice soft yet clear, cutting through the noise. Everyone, can I have your attention? I have something I want to say. Every head shot up toward Yunyanxi standing in the middle of the room. She was always calm and gentle, rarely interrupting their last-minute revision right before the gaokao. The classroom fell silent instantly, all eyes fixed on her, waiting to hear her words. Yunyanxi tightened her grip on the fake ticket, her expression earnest, her tone thick with shared sympathy. I know every single one of us has suffered through this brutal year. Endless drill questions, weekly and monthly exams. The weight of our family's hopes, we've all been stretched far too thin. Anyone who walks into that exam hall with a frayed state of mind will almost certainly underperform terribly. Her words struck a universal chord within the room. Soft murmurs of agreement rippled through the students, every face etched with recognition. I've been thinking these past few days, why must we force ourselves to charge across the single log bridge when we're at our weakest? Yunyanxi spoke gently yet with powerful sway. If we fail, we'll face scoldings, self-hatred, and the crushing letdown of watching a year's hard work go to waste. Instead of stumbling out defeated, what if we all pause together? Take a year to reset. Ji Xinghe stared in shock. Pause. How? You cannot enter the exam hall without an admission ticket. Yunyanxi stated clearly for everyone to hear. If we get rid of our tickets, we don't have to take the exam this year. No exam means no failure, no disappointment, no blame. We're simply choosing to postpone it for 1 year, not surrendering. A roar of shock swept across the classroom the second she finished speaking. Some stared in disbelief, some hesitated, and others' eyes lit up with sudden hope. Throw away our tickets. That would mean we miss the exam entirely. Someone whispered nervously. It's a missed exam, but only for this year. Yunyanxi jumped in smoothly to reassure them. Anyone willing to repeat Senior 3 can come back next year with a clearer head and steady footing. Those who don't want to repeat can use this time to rethink their plans. Most importantly, we won't have to gamble our futures today while our minds are falling apart. She swept her gaze over the whole class and emphasized her point. And we'd all be doing this together. No one stands alone. No one bears shame. We're just giving ourselves an extended break as a group. I stood quietly at the back of the classroom, watching everything unfold without uttering a single word. I never interjected, never guided her speech. Every line had been sorted, formulated, and spoken entirely by Yunyanshi herself. She'd seen their shared anxiety, seized on their deepest fears, and volunteered to step forward to hand them all an excuse to escape. Fong Yuan was the first to cave, jerking upright in his seat. Truth be told, I never wanted to take this exam. I've been forced to study non-stop for so long I can't hold on anymore. If everyone's skipping together, I'm fully on board. Dead last in grades. He'd always feared the test and his parents' rage, with the safety net of the group to hide behind. All his cowardice suddenly felt justified. Luo Jingfan wavered, frowning as he mulled it over. My mind really is in tatters. Forcing myself to sit the test will only lead to disaster. If the whole class is doing it, it hardly feels like a failure at all. The herd mentality was the deadliest flaw in young people. To quit alone was humiliation. To quit as a collective was liberation. Ji Xinghe bit her lip, hesitated a few seconds, then followed suit. I'm terrified of my mom tearing into me if I flop. If everyone's sitting it out, I don't want to push myself either. Within mere minutes, most of the class's resolve crumbled and shifted entirely. The willpower they'd clung to through all their hardship proved no match for the temptation of group escape. Some hesitated, some wavered, while others silently pulled their admission tickets out onto their desks. Is this really allowed? If we throw them away, we truly don't have to test. Another student whispered, seeking confirmation. Absolutely. Yunyanshi nodded firmly, holding up the fake ticket in her hand to bolster her own confidence. I've already made up my mind. I am skipping this year's exam today. It's all voluntary. Anyone who wants to break free from this stress with me can dispose of their ticket themselves. And we'll get through this low point side by side. She pressured no one. Every choice they made would be their own. I swept a cold gaze across the classroom, taking in every wavering, conflicted face that eventually softened into relief. In our past life, you'd all follow the crowd willingly to bully me and shatter my peace of mind. In this life, you would all follow the crowd willingly to skip the exam and destroy your own futures. How perfectly fair. More and more students acted. Some hesitated briefly before tearing the edges of their tickets. Others crumpled them into tight balls. Still others walked to the windows and tossed them without a second thought into the trash cans downstairs. No coercion. No threats. Every discarded, ruined ticket represented a life they'd thrown away with their own two hands. Luo Jingfan crumpled his admission ticket and exhaled a deep breath, as if lifting a 1,000-pound weight from his shoulders. No more torment at last. This feels amazing. Ji Xinghe stuffed hers deep into the bottom of her desk drawer, her features slack with relief. Whatever happens, I just want one day of peace first. Fong Yuan was the most decisive, tossing his entire ticket away with a loose grin. The freedom of skipping the exam is finally mine. 10 minutes was all it took. Every student in our senior 3 class save for me had made their admission tickets disappear. Some tore them to shreds. Some threw them outside. Some hid them and pretended they'd gone missing. Every single person had personally invalidated their exam entry qualification. Yunyanshi stared out at the scene, her eyes glowing with a strong sense of accomplishment. She turned to face me, her smile warm and bright. Qing Yuan. Look, everyone's free at last. I watched her naive, malicious display and nodded faintly, my tone flat and unchanging. That's nice. Everyone was free, except all of you, who were about to plunge into the deepest abyss imaginable, and I would walk over the wreckage of all your regret and ruin, charging straight toward the boundless, brilliant future that belonged to me alone. There was still an hour and a half left before the cutoff time for exam hall entry. The whole class packed up their stationery and walked collectively toward the school gate. Instead of the tense urgency that usually hung over everyone heading to tea, He Gaokao, a hollow, artificial sense of ease lingered in the air. Yunyanshi walked right in the center of the crowd, her back held ramrod straight. She kept glancing back every few steps to soothe classmates on either side who were still on edge. Every small gesture brimming with self-satisfaction as the ringleader. Ji Xinghe clung to her side without leaving an inch, repeating over and over that they no longer needed to live in fear. Luo Jingfan and Fang Yuan walked along the outer edge of the group, joking and laughing with the other boys, their voices light with relief at escaping the pressure of sitting the exam. I deliberately lagged at the very end of the procession, both hands tucked deep in my school uniform pockets. Through the fabric, my fingertips brushed the intact admission ticket tucked inside the waterproof inner pouch. The document lay smooth and unmarked, complete with an official embossed stamp, anti-counterfeit barcode, and full photo identification. Me flawless, foolproof pass to the exam hall, guaranteed to raise no issues whatsoever. Along the way, several students tugged at Yunyanshi repeatedly to seek reassurance, faint unease lacing their words. Nianshi, is everything really going to be all right? What are we supposed to tell our families if they ask where our tickets went? A girl with black-rimmed glasses clutched her pencil case, her brow furrowed non-stop. Yunyanshi turned her head and comforted her softly, sounding utterly confident. It's only missing 1 year's exam. We can talk it through with our families afterward. Those who want to repeat Senior 3 can settle down and prepare for next year's intake. And anyone who doesn't wish to continue studying can slowly map out other paths. It's far better than forcing ourselves through the exam today, scoring terrible marks, and going home to face endless scolding. Fang Yuan cut in, waving his hand casually. What's there to be scared of? The whole class is in this together, not just one of us. Even if our parents get upset, they won't single each of us out to vent their anger. His words struck the core comfort everyone clung to, the sense of safety that came from following the crowd, which smothered the last traces of panic lingering in their hearts. Many nodded in agreement, their hidden anxiety fading once more. When we reached the exam venue gate, it was already packed with examinees and accompanying parents. Bright cordons marked clear waiting zones, and 2 invigilators stood at the entrance of the identity verification aisle, holding card readers and identity checklists to inspect every student's admission ticket and ID card one by one. My classmates lingered at the edge of the crowd, watching other candidates queue up in orderly lines to enter the hall. Guilt slowly crept over their faces. The panic masked by collective emotion back in the classroom bubbled to the surface when confronted with the real, rigid exam hall rules. Ji Xingshi grabbed Yunyanshi's arm, her voice trembling. What do we do? I'm panicking now. If we truly can't get inside, we'll miss this year's Gaokao entirely. Luo Jingfan dropped his earlier playful demeanor, his brows drawn tight as he stared at the verification aisle. I just thought it through. Will a record of missing the exam be filed? Will it affect our registration if we repeat Senior 3 next year? A string of unsettling questions rippled through the surrounding students, filling the air with murmurs of worry, trapped in the middle of their anxious questioning. The calm smile on Yunyanshi's face froze. She instinctively pressed a hand to the pocket holding the high-fake admission ticket I'd given her, forcing steadiness into her tone. Don't panic, everyone. I have a spare ticket. If all else fails, I'll head in first. Then find a way to ask the invigilators if there's any remedy for the rest of you. Her words acted as a temporary sedative, quieting the unrest a little. All eyes locked onto her, and everyone pinned their last hopes on that mysterious spare ticket. No one bothered to question where it had come from. They all took it for granted that whatever Yunyanshi held would pass inspection without a hitch. I stood quietly outside the huddle, watching the scene with cold detachment. She had never bothered to examine the hidden anti-counterfeit markers on the ticket, blindly trusting its visual similarity to the real document. My classmates, meanwhile, were so desperate to seize a chance to escape exam pressure they never stopped to consider a privately printed slip could never clear the machine's electronic verification. Every shred of wishful thinking they harbored had dug a deep pit for them to fall into. As entry time drew nearer, the invigilators began urging students still waiting for identity checks to hurry along. Yunyanshi drew a deep breath and gently pushed past the classmates crowding around her. Wait here for me. I'll go get my identity verified first. Then come back to tell you what to do if everything checks out. Clutching the counterfeit ticket, she strode quickly toward the verification aisle. I followed far behind the crowd, unhurried, never stepping forward to speak a single word or offer any guidance. When she reached the card reader, The invigilator gestured for her to hand over her documents and ID. Yu Nianxi passed both cards over smoothly, still wearing her gentle, polished smile. The invigilator first cross-referenced her face against the printed photo for a preliminary manual check, then held the admission ticket against the reader's sensor pad. Instead of the green confirmation light signaling successful verification, a shrill red alarm blared, and bold text flashed across the screen. No filing record found for this document. Suspected forgery. The alarm cut through the noisy throng of students and parents, drawing every gaze in the vicinity toward her. All my classmates froze on the spot, the color draining completely from their faces. The invigilator's expression turned stern at once, setting down the card reader. He looked straight at Yu Nianxi. Young lady, there is a problem with your admission ticket. The system contains no filing information for this document. It counts as forged identification. Come with me to the registration desk beside us to explain yourself. Yu Nianxi's smile shattered instantly. Ice-cold dread washed over her limbs, and she shook her head frantically in denial. That can't be right. It looks identical to the official tickets. How could it be a fake? The machine must be malfunctioning. Sir, please try scanning it again. All venue card readers have undergone unified calibration. Mass malfunctions are impossible, the invigilator replied without an ounce of leniency. Pulling out a paper registry notebook and ballpoint pen, forging Gaokao entry credentials is a severe violation of exam regulations. We are required to record your personal details and log the incident in the National Student Integrity File. The Integrity File. Those 4 words crashed heavily into Yu Nianxi's mind. Her knees buckled, nearly sending her collapsing to the ground. She spun around and scanned the crowd of our classmates in a wild panic, her eyes darting desperately to find me. Ji Xinghe was the first to rush forward, her voice cracking with sobs of despair. Nianxi, what on earth is happening? You promised the spare ticket would work. We all threw our real admission tickets away because of you. What do we do now? We don't even qualify to enter the exam hall. Luo Jingfan hurried after her, his face ashen with rage. Back in the classroom, you egged us all on to toss our tickets, claiming skipping the exam together would free us from stress. Now your ticket's a fake, and none of us can sit this year's Gaokao. How do you plan to make this right for all of us? Chaos erupted within the group. All the fear and anger they'd suppressed for hours burst forth at once. Students who had voluntarily torn or discarded their own tickets swarmed forward, overlapping accusations and demands filling the air. I was only struggling with test anxiety. I could have pushed through and finished the exam. If I hadn't listened to you and thrown my ticket away, I'd already be inside the hall by now. My parents took time off work just to accompany me through the Gaokao. If they find out I missed the exam, they'll be furious with me. A whole year of hard work will have gone to waste. It's far too late to apply for replacement tickets now. Entry time is almost up. We've lost our last chance entirely. All their fury and frustration descended upon Yu Nianxi. No one remembered they'd chosen to abandon their tickets of their own free will. All they recalled was that Yu Nianxi had led the movement, that she dangled the false hope of a usable spare ticket in front of them, trapped in the center of the angry crowd. Yu Nianxi's eyes welled with tears. She shook her head repeatedly, pleading her innocence. I had no idea the ticket was fake. Someone gave it to me, and I truly believed it was a valid spare the entire time. I never meant to lie to any of you. Her frantic gaze cut across the crowd and locked straight onto me, standing on the outermost edge with a calm, unruffled expression. She shoved through the students blocking her path and stumbled to my side, clamping a tight grip around my wrist until her fingertips whitened from the force. Qing Yuan, you have to explain to the teacher. You're the one who gave me this ticket. Tell the invigilator there must have been a printing error. Please. Beg them to understand. Help me. Help all of us. Every pair of eyes in the crowd followed her hand to land on me, and the tide of angry accusations shifted instantly toward my direction. So you're the one who gave her the fake ticket. You knew it wouldn't work, yet you still handed it over to her. You had a complete, valid admission ticket the whole time, and you watched us throw ours away. Did you predict all of this would happen from the start? What were you thinking? You stood by and watched us lose our shot at the Gaokao without uttering a single word of warning. Wave after wave of blame crashed over me. Yet I remained completely unflustered. I gently pulled my wrist free from Yunyanshi's grasp, slowly pulled my genuine admission ticket out of the inner pocket of my bag, unfolded it alongside my ID card, and held both documents up for everyone to see. The paper was crisp and intact. The card reader had processed dozens of candidates moments earlier, and everyone present knew only this official document could grant entry into the exam hall. My voice remained steady, utterly flat and emotionless. I offered no defensive outbursts, no overreactions, only a plain recitation of every fact that had unfolded from the very beginning. Last night during evening self-study, you came to me of your own accord to pour out your pre-exam anxiety, saying you couldn't bear to sit the Gaokao and feared the pressure of failure. I only explained the official rule. No admission ticket means no entry to the exam hall. I never urged anyone to discard their documents. I paused, sweeping my gaze across every single classmate gathered there. Each word clear and unmissable. This morning back in the classroom, you voluntarily stepped up to the podium and told everyone they could delay the exam by throwing their tickets away. Every single one of you tore up or discarded your own admission slips with your own hands. No one forced you. No one coerced you. Yunyanshi's lips trembled as she tried to retort. Yet she could find not a single counterargument. Every person present had watched each other destroy their tickets. The evidence was undeniable, leaving no room for denial. As for that spare ticket, I turned to face her, her face drained of all color, my tone cool and detached. I only told you it looked identical to the real document to the naked eye. I never promised it would pass electronic verification at the exam hall. Identity checks at the venue include cross-referencing against the national online filing system. I never concealed that rule from you. The invigilator walked over to us with his registry notebook, having heard our entire exchange, and stepped in to restate the official exam regulations. Losing or damaging your admission ticket voluntarily only counts as a personal choice to forfeit this year's exam. Forging Gaokao admission tickets, however, is legally logged in the National Student Integrity File. You will face restrictions on university admissions and all future academic examinations for years to come. And this disciplinary record will stay permanently attached to your personal file. This sentence shattered the last thread of mental resilience holding Yunyanshi together. Her legs gave way, and she sank to the ground, burying her face in her hands and breaking into quiet, racking sobs. Her delicate, gentle public facade crumbled completely, leaving only overwhelming regret and despair in its wake. The surrounding students stared at her collapsed form, then glanced at the intact, valid ticket held in my hands, though seething with anger. They could no longer find grounds to blame me. From start to finish, I had pressured no one. Every disastrous decision they'd made had been voluntary, driven by their own crippling anxiety. The venue's entry broadcast blared its final reminder, announcing the verification aisles behind the cordons would close imminently. I folded and stowed my documents safely, lifted my eyes to glance at my classmates huddled to the side, their faces twisted with complicated emotions. Without another word, I turned and walked steadily toward the identity verification aisle. Behind me, shouts, sobs, and heavy sighs faded into the distance. All the malice and scheming that had haunted me for an entire decade in my past life had rebounded fully onto those who'd inflicted it. They were trapped where they stood, locked inside a dead end they'd built for themselves with their own hands. Meanwhile, I was about to step into the exam hall and reclaim the life that had always belonged to me. The heavy iron gate of the exam hall slammed shut behind me, cutting off the chaotic cries and arguments drifting from outside. I found my assigned seat, set down my stationery bag steadily, placed my admission ticket and ID card at the top right corner of the desk, and waited quietly for the invigilators to hand out the exam papers. All the other candidates around me were strangers, their eyes filled only with nervousness and quiet hope. None carried the crushing despair of the crowd out front. The soft rustle of pens scratching across scratch paper hung in the air, calm and orderly. This was the atmosphere I'd ached for desperately for an entire decade in my past life. 10 years prior at this very moment, I'd been suffocating under rumors and ostracism, my hands shaking nonstop throughout the exam. My mind wandered endlessly while reading questions, going completely blank even on knowledge points I'd memorized backwards and forwards. 12 years of relentless studying had gone to waste. Everyone else marched toward bright futures, leaving me alone mired in muck. Now, sitting inside the exam hall once more, peace settled deep in my heart. All the shadows of the past had faded without a trace, leaving not a single distracting thought. The Gaokao stretched across 2 days, covering 4 separate subjects. I maintained a steady mindset the entire time. Reading questions, working calculations, and writing answers with effortless fluidity, tackling every problem with poise and thoroughness. When I walked out of the venue after the final exam, the sunset hung soft and warm on the horizon, clutching my intact documents. I strode lightly away from the exam site. Not a single one of my classmates was visible at the school gate. I made no effort to look for them and headed straight back to the dormitory to pack my luggage. The corridor was eerily empty, stripped of its usual bustle, with only a handful of students from other classes sorting their belongings. I pushed open the door to our dorm room to find it in total disarray. Yunyanxi's bedding lay crumpled haphazardly across her bed frame, crumpled tissues and half-empty bottled water scattered over her desk, while Ji Xinghe's textbooks littered the floor, abandoned without a single attempt to tidy them away. I packed my own belongings at an unhurried pace, stacking textbooks, notes and stationery neatly into my suitcase. Suddenly the door was flung wide open. Luo Jingfan blocked the doorway alongside Ji Xinghe, Fang Yuan, and 3 more of our classmates, all with dark, stormy faces brimming with barely suppressed rage. Luo Jingfan stepped forward first, his voice tight and sharp with hostility. Xia Qingyuan, you sat calmly through every exam while every single one of us missed this year's Gaokao. You owe us an explanation for this. Ji Xinghe's eyes reddened, her shoulders trembling faintly, her tone a tangled mix of grievance and resentment. It was you who told Nianxi we could escape the pressure by throwing away our admission tickets, and you gave her a fake one that couldn't possibly work. You knew exactly what the outcome would be. You schemed against all of us from the very start, didn't you? Fang Yuan stuffed both hands into his pockets, his face twisted with irritation. I'd resigned myself to powering through the exam, but I tossed my ticket after listening to Yunyanxi. Now my one shot this year is gone for good. My parents screamed at me nonstop at home. And this is all your fault. They cut in over one another, desperate to shift all blame onto me, deliberately ignoring the truth that each of them had destroyed their own tickets and chosen to follow the crowd in running away. I paused packing my suitcase, lifted my gaze to meet theirs evenly, my voice utterly devoid of emotion. First of all, I never persuaded anyone to discard their admission ticket. During evening self-study yesterday, I merely explained the official exam rules objectively to Yunyanxi. No ticket meant no entry into the hall, that was all. This morning, Yunyanxi voluntarily stepped onto the podium to tell the whole class we could skip the exam. After hearing her, every one of you chose to dispose of your own documents of your own free will. No one pressured you. No one coerced you. I gestured toward Yunyanxi, who stood at the back of the group with her head bowed, not daring to glance at me since they'd burst in. She flinched faintly when I named her. Second, regarding that spare document, I only told her it looked identical to the real ticket to the naked eye. I never promised it would pass electronic machine verification. All official Gaokao credentials are logged into an online filing system maintained by the Education Bureau. Privately printed slips cannot possibly carry back-end data. This basic rule would have been clear to all of you if you'd bothered reading the exam venue guidelines before the test. At these words, Yunyanxi finally lifted her head, her eyes bloodshot and her voice rough with sobs. But you knew I would take that ticket to the exam hall. Why didn't you warn me in advance that the scanner wouldn't recognize it? If you'd told me the truth beforehand, I would never have convinced the whole class to give up the exam. I have no obligation to plan out everyone's life choices for them. I replied flatly. The urge to run away, born from the pressure your family heaped on you, stemmed from your own inner turmoil. You took the initiative to rally the whole class. That was your personal decision. Everyone else followed your lead and threw away their tickets because each of them secretly wanted to avoid the exam themselves. Every choice was made entirely within your power. I was merely an onlooker with no right to make decisions for any of you. Luo Jingfan furrowed his brow even tighter, refusing to accept my reasoning. None of this would have happened if you hadn't planted the idea of escaping in Yunyanxi's head. At the end of the day, the root cause lies with you. Throughout the entire third year of senior high, monthly and mock exams piled pressure on us non-stop. And nearly every single person complained about dreading the gaokao. The desire to flee had already taken root in all of your hearts long before I spoke a word. I only voiced the thoughts you all hid too shamefully to admit. I swept my gaze across every face in the room. A few days ago, break. Fong Yuan huddled with the boys talking about dropping out to work. Ji Xinghe cried to others more than once about her fear of failing to reach an undergraduate score. You, Luo Jingfan, ranted to your friends about being mentally broken. Did I put those words in your mouths too? My speech left them speechless. Most of their anger draining away to leave only awkward embarrassment etched across their faces. They were forced to acknowledge the urge to skip the exam had lingered deep within each of them all along. I had never been the source. Merely someone who handed them a collective excuse to run away. Ji Xinghe bit her lip, still unwilling to back down. Even if we'd already had those thoughts, you shouldn't have tricked Nianxi with a fake ticket. Now she's been marked on the National Student Integrity File, and her future education will be restricted at every turn. I only handed the document to her. The choice to bring it to the exam hall and trust it would pass inspection belonged solely to her. I turned toward Nianxi. I never hid the fact the print shop replica looked indistinguishable from the real thing to the naked eye. Yet electronic scanner verification is a mandatory venue procedure. I fabricated no outright lies, I simply chose not to volunteer extra reminders. That hardly counts as deliberate deception. Footsteps echoed down the corridor just then. Our head teacher He Jinbong appeared at the dorm door, Wei clutching a registration ledger, his expression dark upon seeing the tense standoff inside the room. What are all of you doing crowding in here? The Academic Affairs Office just sent over all the exam venue violation records and the full list of students who missed today's exams. He flipped open the notebook in his hand and fixed his gaze on Yu Nianxi. The disciplinary penalty for forging gaokao admission credentials has been logged permanently in your integrity file. This record will follow you for life. Imposing restrictions on postgraduate entrance exams, civil service recruitment, and all university admissions from now on. The rest of you voluntarily damaged your tickets to forfeit the exam. Your results for this year will be officially marked as absent. Your only options are repeating Senior 3 or abandoning further education entirely. The full weight of the punishment crashed over Yu Nianxi. She swayed on her feet, hot tears splattering onto the floor. Teacher, I didn't mean to forge a document, someone gave it to me. I truly had no idea it wouldn't work. Who supplied the ticket does not erase the fact that you attempted venue verification with counterfeit credentials. The penalty cannot be revoked. Teacher, he spoke sternly before turning to the others. Our students. I held individual talks with each of you, repeatedly easing your pre-exam stress and explaining that lost admission tickets could be replaced in advance at the Education Bureau. Yet every single one of you destroyed your tickets of your own accord and threw away your chance to remedy the situation. Never reporting your troubles to me ahead of time. It's too late for regret now. There's no turning back. Luo Jingfan clenched his fists, voice thick with resentment. Teacher, none of this would have happened if Xia Qingyuan hadn't manipulated Yu Nianxi. Teacher, he glanced at me, then reviewed the witness statements from invigilators and surveillance footage captured at the exam gate filed by Academic Affairs before speaking slowly. The office retrieved security camera footage from the venue entrance and took written statements from the invigilators. Records confirm Yu Nianxi independently took charge of persuading classmates to skip the exam, and all students destroyed their tickets voluntarily. Xia Qingyuan took no actions to coerce or egg anyone on, and committed no violation of inciting others to forfeit the gaokao. With the full truth laid bare by the head teacher in front of everyone, they lost all grounds for argument. Their blazing rage melted into crushing despair. Fong Yuan leaned against the wall and let out a long, heavy sigh. His eyes filled with unbridled regret. Ji Xinghe sank to the floor, burying her face in her hands and sobbing quietly. Luo Jingfan stood frozen in place, silent, his face alternating between pale and flushed. Teacher, he looked over the dejected group, his tone tinged with helplessness. You all know how hard you've worked this entire third year of high school. All that preparation has gone to waste because you chose to run away for a moment's relief. Yu Nianxi, Go home and speak thoroughly with your parents about the integrity file blemish. The rest of you must either start preparing to repeat Senior 3 immediately, or discuss alternative life paths with your families as soon as possible. With that, the head teacher turned and left the dorm, leaving only stifling silence hanging in the corridor. Yunyanshi walked slowly toward me, her voice broken with wounded grievance. I know it's useless to say anything now. The stain on my integrity file can never be erased. And the whole class has missed this year's exam, but I still can't reconcile myself to it. Did you get to finish all your exams peacefully while all of us have to bear the consequences? Because from the very start, I never chose to run away. I zipped up my suitcase and lifted my eyes to meet hers, trapped by pressure. You chose to destroy your own entry qualifications. I guarded my chance firmly. Every consequence you face is the cumulative result of every choice each of you made. There's no one else to blame. No one stepped forward to block my path. I dragged my suitcase past the crowd and walked out of the dormitory door. Fragmented shouts and weeping echoed behind me as they turned on one another, drowning in mutual blame and private remorse. This was the ending they'd crafted with their own hands. When I reached the school gate, a bus rumbled slowly toward the distant stop. I did not look back. In my past life, I had been trapped, unable to move an inch, stuck in the mire they'd created for me. In this life, they were confined within the cage they'd woven themselves, forced to taste the bitter fruits of their own actions. Every cause bears its corresponding effect. Nothing could be fairer.